Hi everybody, it's Kerrie here at the North East Autism Society, and today we're going to be talking about sensory differences from a parent perspective, and I've got with me the lovely Ashley Jones. So Ashley, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am autistic myself, and I have two boys, Isaac and Noah, who are 6 and 8, who are both autistic. I was down mid-20s, and I work for the society.
Okay, great. So today I know that you were quite keen to talk about sensory differences, which is something we get a lot of questions from parents, really. So I suppose it was just to get your insight in. I know you've got, is it 2 children you have with an autism diagnosis or 1?
Just Isaac, who's 6, has an autism diagnosis. He had that when he was 3. My middle son, Noah, who's 8, isn't diagnosed, but from our opinion, he is. He's not struggling enough to warrant a diagnosis, and that's a personal choice. He's fine, and his strategies, he's happy. We may choose to get him diagnosed later on if he comes across more difficulties.
Yeah, great. Okay. So with your son that has the diagnosis, and I suppose for the one that potentially will get diagnosed as well, what kind of sensory differences do you see in the children?
So Isaac is very particular in his routine and the way that he deals with the stresses of the day, if you like. His immediate thing to do when he gets in the house is to strip off half from his underpants, because the day and the absorption of all of the emotions and the classes and everything that takes him a while to process. So he helps himself by getting rid of all of his clothes. He'll go into his bedroom. He absolutely loves penguins, so he's surrounded by all of his penguins, and he jumps up on his bed and he'll put YouTube on, and there's a particular channel that speaks different languages, and it's just tanks going backwards and forwards, and he loves that, and that's how he processes the day. So I suppose emotionally is the biggest impact on him, that then leads into the physical side of the clothes. There's the particular noises that he doesn't like. So being in his room enables him to remove himself from noise, because he can get overloaded trying to process something, and he comes in and say his brothers are running about, or there's some noise in the background. He might have a meltdown because he might not be able to process that level of noise at the same time as his thoughts. So I'd say the main two are probably touch and noise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a parent, Ashley, how do you help him with those differences that he has around touch and noise?
It was trial and error. There was no, answer. He's unique, and the way he perceives everything is unique to him. So we made a lot of mistakes. We tried certain things like stim toys and things like that. They didn't really work. He wasn't really interested. We knew that he loved penguins, so we bought him more penguins, but that doesn't always work. His penguins aren't enough of a draw to kind of pull him away from what he's feeling. So through trial and error, we just basically eliminated things one by one until we found what it was that worked for him.
Yeah. So with your son, is there any kind of environments, Ashley, that you would absolutely avoid for him, where it would just be too much?
Yes. Anywhere where there's lots of people is a bog standard one. But the thing is, he surprises us all the time. This is the thing with being autistic. It's so adaptable in the sense that Isaac already is masking in certain areas, and he's doing that of his own accord. So he's regulating himself. But then in other areas where we might think a crowd is a problem, if he's around for people, his family, a crowd isn't a problem because he can kind of zone out and feel safe in that environment. So it's really, it depends. It depends on the day, what type of start of day he's had. It depends on how much he's processing in one particular time, and it depends on emotionally how he feels.
So, Ashley, is there any specific strategies that he has in school, for example, that you would use for his sensory needs?
Yeah. At first, this were a little bit hesitant. I think because schools have a limited amount of resources and they do the best they can, and they can't meet with absolute single parent and take on board everything that's been said and enact everything. Once we had good over the school and they realised that we were quite knowledgeable, we work quite closely with the school now, and we've developed lots of strategies. So Isaac has a weighted ball that he's allowed to push around in the playground. So he won't go out with the rest of the kids. Sometimes he just wants to go out there and push on the big heavy ball himself, and he gets that sensory feedback. He has a vest that can be tightened to different levels, so that if he's starting to get anxious, he can put his vest on and it can be tightened, which applies pressure on his body, deep pressure, which he really, really enjoys. He has a penguin chart because he loves penguins, and on the penguin chart, it's a reward chart. Every time he does something good, he gets to feed the penguin a fish, and then the fish goes on the board, and then he's happy, and that can be motivating for him sometimes. We've talked to the teachers about stimulation with his hands. So if he's starting to stim quite a lot and he's starting to get oversensitized, just simply putting his palm on the top of your palm and running your finger in the figure of 8 on his palm can sometimes help him regulate. There are other things like a tent. He's got his own little tent. So if he gets really overstimulated, he can take his penguin that he's allowed to take to school into the tent and be on his own for a little while. At first, him going to the bathroom was quite difficult because he wasn't always kind of aware that he needed the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
There's a strategy in place where as soon as he starts to kind of jump around, they know it's kind of time for him to go to the toilet. And because it was regimented and because it was the same approach and because it was reacting to him and what he was doing, now he's picked that up and he does it himself, which is fantastic.
That's really good. I think that's just something I was going to ask you. You know, is he able to take some of them strategies and put them in place himself rather than being always reliant on another person?
Well, that's the ultimate goal with every single one of them. We'd love Isaac to be able to be emotionally intelligent enough to recognize what's happening, notice whatever the trigger might be in that certain situation, and then respond to that trigger in a way that helps him regulate himself without anybody else kind of needing to have input. And because we're using emotional intelligence techniques, he's picking it up really quickly. He's responding to them really quickly because he's getting a good feeling from them. It's not coming from anybody else. He feels like, oh, this is a good thing, so I'm going to do this again. So yeah, definitely surprises us constantly with things that he does. As parents, because we love our children so intensely and they are the world to us, we immediately want to kind of help. And I've learned this with my son. I can't always help. Sometimes he just needs to go away, he does his own thing, and he'll come back. And I like to think as his dad, pardon me, that I know everything. I like to assume that, you know, he's my son. I can I can deal with this. I've got an answer for this. with autism, there isn't. There isn't always an answer to a certain situation. And as much as you might want to get involved, sometimes you've got to bite your fist and walk away, because the learning that we found with Isaac, the best learning that we found with Isaac, is allowing him to regulate himself without our interference. He has actually come up with far better strategies than we ever could. Like I know that he wants to strip off, so sometimes, you know, if I feel like he's melting down, I'll say, do you want to take your clothes off? Do you want to go into your room or whatever? And sometimes like I was walking with him the other day. He was starting to get oversensitized, and it was really warm. And I thought, oh wow, I'm going to need to get him some water. He's going to want to take his jacket and all these different things off. Wandered off to the right, and he picked up all those flowers with all the seeds on the earth. I don't know what they're called. I just had a blank moment. He picked one of them up, but instead of blowing it and watching them all flow away, he picked them off one by one. See, as I was watching him, and I was really proud that was how he was regulating. He was paying so much attention to being so delicate, to not disrupting the rest of it, and picking them off one by one, that now, you know, I carry 10 pennies with me, and if he's getting sensitized, I'll see what he does, and then I can hand him the 10 pennies and he'll count to back from 10. And then, so sometimes the kids are the best at finding what strategies work for them.
Absolutely.